We are Journals Out Loud. I'm your lovely and captivating host, Louise Palanker, here with a panel of wise and wonderful teenagers. We're here to discuss all kinds of issues facing teens today. Teens tomorrow. Teens the day after that. So if you know a teen...
What are you doing?
Wait, Matt, what are you doing?
What are you doing there?
Matt, what are you doing?
Somewhere.
Matt, the show has started. Okay. Matt, please. All right. So everyone's
What's
chasing
going on?
You're not doing it, Lyric?
No.
Apparently
No,
everyone's
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm very proud
you
that
need to get with this program. Okay. Apparently everyone is chasing Pokemon. Kenneth, you're chasing Pokemon?
Yes.
Oh, God.
Team Red all the way.
Josh, you're doing it?
Yeah.
Victoria?
I've never heard of it.
Wow.
Okay, so Jake is addicted, Aaron's addicted, Andrew's addicted.
Like how it's
I'm
only the
proudly
girls.
not
The two
addicted.
girls on the show are the two people who haven't heard about it.
No, I've heard about it. I just am proudly not doing it.
So apparently
amazing.
video gaming has gone off-road. Do I have this
Ooh.
correct? Video
Yeah.
gaming has gone off-road, and you have to leave your house to play the video game. And people, I guess, are walking into holes, and they're just, because they're not accustomed to actually going outdoors. It's like it's a skill that has atrophied. So people are walking into ponds, they're walking into holes, and they're looking for Pokemon. Who's addicted to the game? Who can testify? Who's on microphone? Ken?
Yeah.
Describe the game, please, because we're going to introduce our guest after we do this little bit where we
After we
acknowledge and address the issue of gaming.
Sorry. It's also Pokemon Go. That is what happens.
The confluence of gaming and life. Kenneth, explain.
Okay, Pokemon Go is a game where you walk around to catch Pokemon, and that is like one of the only ways to catch Pokemon. And like famous places have Pokestops, and you go there and you can get like Pokeballs. It's language that like
know
if
about
anybody
that.
else that's not listening will be like, what is he saying right
See, it
now?
only sounds absurd when you actually have to say it out loud.
Yeah, it
right?
does. It's sad when I feel I'm shameful right now while I'm saying it, but it's really fun. And you get into like groups of people, and you can go out and there's like modules and stuff. But they're like crazy Pokemon stories that have been like happening lately, where like this guy put a lure on on like a stop, which means that like a bunch of Pokemon go there, and apparently he robbed the people because it brings people too. And he like robbed some of the people that came.
Oh, God.
But
Wow.
then they got apprehended, but still.
Really? So people are illegally gaming?
No.
No?
No.
I heard that it's advertised as an exercise game.
Yeah, they were like people like Pokemon Go has done more for childhood obesity than Michelle Obama has done in 8
it's so
years.
funny. That's so funny. I mean, like, it makes sense because you're walking, but like you're looking down at your phone. You're not like you could bump into people and fall
but
into holes
I'm
so easy.
comfortable talking
I know.
publicly about Michelle Obama. I'm really not comfortable publicly talking about Pokemon and training them and walking and finding invisible creatures to collect.
Yeah.
Josh, you said you have walked more.
I have.
Yeah.
I have walked more
Describe and explain.
in the last week since the game has been out in my entire life, probably.
Do you need a nap? Are you doing okay?
My legs hurt for a few days, and then now
No
they just
way.
feel really toned. And I mean, normally I walk like 200 steps a day, probably. And I like bed, bathroom, bed, bathroom, bed,
200
bathroom.
steps.
Where
a
do you
day.
eat?
And then-
That's really
I
sad.
don't know. Maybe I don't. But I walked 8 miles on Thursday, so I was like, yeah.
What?
So the game is changing lives.
Oh, now I have to get the game done.
And now we have to introduce our guest because I mean I know that you guys are obsessed with Pokemon, but you're gonna soon become obsessed with Dan Winters because if you start to study Dan Winters, the photography and the life of Dan Winters, you go down this rabbit hole, and like you start to become obsessed with all these different little kind of like what's it called when something goes off of something else?
Chain of
a
events.
Highways and
tangent? A
byways.
tangent?
No, like rivers,
That's not a tangent.
like a river that.
Tributaries.
Tributaries. Thank you, Dan.
You're welcome.
Dan Winters, everybody. Give him a round of applause.
Woo!
Yeah, because Dan is one of these guys who's just like he's a really, really accomplished photographer, but he has all these passions, and you've gone down lots of rabbit holes in your life. When you
Lots of
become
rabbit holes.
you become obsessed with you and your son Dylan become obsessed with something, and then people don't see you for years.
Yeah, we go into a hole and stay there until we've completed a project and then come back out.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So The next project I'm working on actually is a game that is a virtual game that you, in public with your phone, you go around and you try to find these medallions.
Right.
It's very similar to the Pokemon game, but
Right.
the medallions say "get a life" on them.
Oh,
Oh my!
Oh,
sorry,
shoot.
couldn't
That
resist
hurts.
that. Couldn't
Oh,
resist
man.
that.
ouch! My
I
heart.
wanted to riff off Louise's embarrassment about talking about Pokemon.
Let me just
in
pick
public,
up the
so-
pieces on the
That
floor.
was
Yeah.
a really good
you
one.
guys.
Like,
No, I
I'm-
think it's awesome.
So
I'm
I
pretty
think
proud.
the name, the name of the game should be Poke a Man, and you should get issued a stick, and you have to go down to the coffee shop and poke a man, and then you get points.
Yeah,
Okay,
there
that's
you go.
really funny because once someone
Once I poked a man.
no,
with a
I've been
stick.
at this seminar thing and they were talking about the Pokemon game, and this one person was like, "Oh yeah, everyone's doing this whole Pokemon thing," and we all cracked up because
course.
we were like, "It's not called that."
Poking Man.
But Poking Man.
They should come up with a Poking Man dance where you're just like,
Yeah, we should make that. The
gotta poke a
journals-
man. All right, so Dan Winters, everybody. So now, how did you get your start in photography? And I've read your book, so I know, but I'm not going to tell it. It's your story. But you were like sort of a child savant at photography, correct?
A little bit. I was kind of a child savant at a lot of things, I suppose. I don't know if that's good or bad.
You
but
did the filmmaking thing first,
yeah,
right?
Uh-huh.
So describe and explain, because I think Aaron will find this part fascinating.
It was an interesting, first of all, when I was a kid, I was born in 1962. So when I was sort of at that age, 9, 10, 11, 12, we didn't have access to very much stuff. I lived out in the country, didn't live in the city. So magazines and books were the way I got all my information. And I really was interested in film and interested in Army movies. So I'd build these models and then film them with an 8mm camera and light them on fire and, stuff like that. And so it started kind of out of that. But then I became really interested in miniature effects. So back in the day, they used to do models instead of CG, like spaceships and things like that. So I was very interested in trying to build these things and then film them so that they looked realistic, and that led to work in the special effects industry, and the photography kind of came out of that. And there was insect collecting and beekeeping and small engine repair and all kinds of other things mixed into there, woodworking, welding, lots of different things. So it's all kind of this mishmash. And I feel, I've told my wife before, and she'll definitely agree at this point, but probably that I'm exactly like I was when I was 12. I'm just 52 now. Or how old am I? 53. 53 now. I just kind of do the same stuff. I build models, I take pictures, I raise bees still, I work in my wood shop. It's all kind of the same. It's just, it's kind of just an extension of all those passions from when I was a kid,
Mm-hmm. So was there a point where you said, okay, well, I have all these passions and I can be that guy who has like 100 different passions and, and lives under the freeway, or I can figure out how to take at least one of my passions and turn that into a livelihood?
Yeah, I think the thing about photography for me that was so attractive was that it afforded me sort of access to a lot of different walks of life. And everything from, presidents in the White House to, gangs in San Antonio, Texas, and prisons and celebrities and everything in between. So, photography, we're dependent on subject matter as photographers, so that we have to have something to point our camera at. So anybody that's got a large amount of curiosity, certainly photography is a great way to work, because you're constantly engaging in external things to try to satisfy like your artistic need.
And when you're photographing someone, they're vulnerable
Mm-hmm.
because the camera is pointing at them.
Mhm.
And one of your skill sets, I think, that probably contributes towards your success is that you're very good at reading people.
Mm-hmm.
So is that something that you're consciously doing, knowing that they're vulnerable, to get to capture them, so that you speak to them on a layer where it's their comfort zone, so that you get them to? Are you doing that consciously, or is that just something that kind of happens?
Well, I think all it amounts to is kind of connecting to someone on a human level. So I feel like before I start a session, like a portrait session, for example, I'll usually try to connect maybe on a similar interest or something like that, and then also describe what my intention is. So if we set our intention, everybody kind of knows what we're working toward, So if it's a portrait of Tom Hanks for the cover of Time magazine, we're acknowledging that we're doing a portrait of you for this. It's supporting this thing, and this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And then it all just kind of unfolds after that. But yeah, I've done it professionally for over 30 years. So, I don't feel like it's a manipulative thing at all. I feel like it's a skill, but it's also something that serves making the picture, so the idea of the interaction kind of serves the final product.
Is there a humanity through line that you notice when people are having their photograph taken?
I do, and the thing about my portraits, typically they tend to be pretty pensive and quiet and sort of contemplative, and I try to explain to young photographers that there's really not one way to represent someone. I mean, as human beings, for the most part, unless we're total sociopaths, we possess the entire range of human emotion, and so there isn't a right or wrong sort of way to represent something. I think that to represent someone truthfully is the challenge, because if you want an over-the-top, like, laughing moment, I think people can identify the fact that it's not a real moment unless it's a real moment. And so to get that moment, what do we do to get that moment? I mean, that's not a moment I go for oftentimes, but we just did a shoot on Wednesday with Danny McBride, or Monday, I can't remember when it was, big shoot. And it's interesting because, he's a comedian, and so we embraced all that. And so that, those kinds of moments were very prevalent on a shoot like that. But if I'm photographing, a woman who's pregnant, who has terminal cancer, that's another kind of shoot. It's a very, very different way to approach a shoot. So, that is an interesting part of my profession as well, is that I go from just absolute extremes, with regards to the subject matter, which is totally fascinating to me. I kind of feel like I can navigate a lot of different milieus,
Do you feel like you know someone after you've gone through that process with them?
Sometimes. And the goal is, even if I don't know that person, I try to make or present an intimacy as though I do, so that the viewer feels like they do. And I think that's the important piece, help the viewer to connect to the individual.
So you photographed President Obama before he was president, right?
Uh-huh.
And what was your takeaway from that guy?
He was great. It's really interesting because I took my son. So the shoot was supposed to be at like 11 o'clock at night, and they came in, Secret Service came in. It was right at where he got the nomination. Actually, it was the night he got the nomination, I believe, that we shot him, or right at that point. The Secret Service came in and said, can we move the shoot till tomorrow morning? We were in San Antonio, actually, Texas, and we got hotel rooms at the hotel, but it was a 5:15 a.m. call time for him.
Oh.
So I didn't sleep the whole time, but I brought Dylan, my son, who you know well, to the shoot. And what I really love about sort of genuine people is that, he immediately gravitated toward Dylan and said, you ditching school today, you're not in school, and chatted him up a little bit. And, politicians are very good at remembering people's names anyway, and they'll kind of go around the room and remember everyone's name. And it's always pretty impressive to see. But he seemed very genuine, and I like that. But, I got that version of him. I got that 20-minute version of Barack Obama. I have no way to know what the full gamut of his potential is, with regards to his personality or his character.
Well, since you photographed him moments before,
Mm-hmm.
I think you should photograph him moments after 8
yeah,
years.
Exactly.
That'd be exciting.
That'd be very cool. Yeah.
Do you guys have any questions for Dan? He's photographed pretty much anyone you're privately in love with, so ask away. He's met them.
What is one of the craziest experiences you've had in a shoot?
I was actually gonna ask that. Yeah.
Craziest experiences.
Or funniest.
Funniest. I'll tell you this. One of the sweetest experiences was photographing Mr. Rogers. It was my favorite shoot of my whole career.
Oh
So
my god.
yeah, I had 3 days with him in Pittsburgh, and it was so wonderful, and he was so playful. And the thing I loved about that experience was that, people talk about when, if you're meeting a photographer, I'm not really meeting that person, I'm meeting their representative, because it behooves them to be cool to me, because I'm, they're at the receiving end of my sharp stick, right? The camera's the sharp stick. And so I have a lot of power in that situation, with regards to how they're represented, And at any given time over the 3 days in Pittsburgh, I was with Fred, people that work for him pulled me aside and they said, listen, I just want you to know I've worked for Fred for 25 years or 20 years or whatever, and he's just the most amazing person. And it spoke to me about a couple things. One is it was completely unsolicited. I didn't ask about working for Fred. They came to me. And secondly, you don't work for someone for 25 years who's a jerk. And so that was a really special experience for me. The last night we went to a Chinese restaurant, and he, after we finished eating, he got his fortune, and he looked at it and he said, "Oh, this is for you, Dan." He gave it to me and it said, "You are kind and friendly." So that was that was a great moment. And as far as crazy moments, I mean, I did a shoot last week with about honeybees with this beekeeper, and we shot at my apiary, which is where my hives are. But I did the whole shoot in bee suits because we opened the whole hive up and there were bees flying everywhere and stuff. So that was kind of crazy. It was really hard to manipulate the controls on the camera with gloves on and smoke floating around and bees everywhere on everything, landing on the lens and stuff like that. So that was kind of a cool, challenging thing. But
Wow.
Victoria?
Well, he kind of answered it.
Oh, you all three came up with the same question? Josh?
Yeah.
Who's your? Well, you said who the favorite person was. That's what I was gonna ask too.
Oh, he saved them. He got a
Because he
Boy.
kind of like combined all
I
of
did,
the
sorry.
He did. He got a voice message from Mr. Rogers after he got home, and he and Catherine saved it,
Yeah.
and they played it for me. It's
it was sweet,
the
wasn't it?
sweetest thing.
He said, "Hello, Dan. This is Fred Rogers calling from Pittsburgh. I just want to make sure you got home safely.
Oh my God.
Say hi to Catherine and Dylan." I mean, it was the sweetest
Oh.
message ever. Yeah, it was really special. He was very
so
special.
Cute.
And the cool thing was he wanted to take a picture of me with my camera, so I set it all up, and he took a picture. And for that issue, it was a cover for Esquire magazine, and so he was on my contributor page. I used my little picture of me that Fred shot, and the credit said Fred Rogers. I thought that was really
Oh,
cool.
that's so
Awesome.
cute.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Ken?
I was just wondering, since we know who's like the best person you worked with, who's been the most difficult person?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, me. I think it was me.
Yeah, it
Ooh.
was. You know, it's really funny. I get asked that question a lot, and I have to say, and I don't know what it is, but I have had such great luck in my career. I have heard absolute horror stories before, and I've had situations definitely that started to go south that I was able to like retrieve, just kind of based on, once again, like connecting on a human level. Like I had a recording artist recently, and I was photographing her album package, and it was the first time she'd ever been. It was kind of this. She'd kind of been thrust onto the scene, and there was a lot of expectation around the release of her record, and I feel like all of it felt totally foreign to her, and the photo shoot felt foreign. Everything felt foreign, and right in the middle of it, she just started sobbing, and she like went into the dressing room, and it was just like I just think she just completely, like, I don't know what it was, and I went in and sat down and talked to her for a while and just sort of said, "Listen, I know it feels weird to be in front of a camera, but the photo doesn't reflect the way it feels a lot of times, and you have to kind of like find that spot." And she came back out, and she was like a total pro the rest of the time, you know, just like we worked through it, you know.
Yeah.
And that kind of things happened a few times, or a lot of times. But I think, honestly, I shouldn't name any names, but I think a couple times, you know, I've had a couple of people that were kind of problematic. I'm not going to name any names, but that rhymes with Benton Barambino.
Oh.
Think about that one.
Yeah.
I don't think he doesn't often like the way his chin
No.
looks in certain lighting.
But what's really funny about
my
it,
God.
having said that, I think I've shot him like 5 times, and he's like completely made good on everything and like apologized, and you know, so that was really, honestly, I think kind of the only time really I had a hard time with someone, and that was like on the 3rd time that we shot together. And then the next time, and even at the end of that, you know, I probably shouldn't even have said that, because at the end of that shoot, he's like, "Wow, man, I feel really bad like about this. Do you have everything? Should we keep working? Is there
Well,
anything
that's
else we
really
But,
need?"
you know, everybody
you know.
has bad days, and the thing about
Everybody
someone
does,
like
yeah.
that guy is like uber busy, and
Uber,
you
yeah.
know, and so I mean, I'm sure that anybody here would be impossible if it was like the 20th thing scheduled into like a really busy day, and
Yeah.
you're supposed to look cute, you know. So we all have those moments and those moods, and the tough part for you is that, you know, you're just as busy, but you have to always err on the side of being a safe place, and you don't get to have a meltdown.
I don't get to have a meltdown, and I also have to make a picture.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, I can't sort of walk away from it, right, and say like, you know, I don't want to do this. It's like I have to make the picture. So that's a challenge, and that's a unique challenge, you know, typically.
Yeah, because a lot of times Dan's building his own sets, and he's there way earlier and way later, just because if you look through his portfolio on, is it danwinters.com?
I don't even
all
know.
this stuff.
What's my? If you just do Dan Winters.
Dan Winters photo. If
Yeah.
you Google Dan Winters, you'll find it. But a lot of the stuff you're seeing is he has built these sets. So he's taking all of his skill sets and all of the interests that he talked about at the top of the show. He kind of combines them and infuses his photography with all the other passions. And he's a big NASA freak, and he'll go down to NASA and get clearance and have special access to shuttle launches and stuff. Like, he's had like some fascinating experiences, because if you have a camera, you've got a reason to be there. And that's one really cool thing about photography is you get to not only be there, but you get to be of value to whatever's going on, because you've captured it for everybody. And so everyone loves the photographer. We're going to test some of Dan's additional skill sets and see how good he is
Whoa.
with teenage girls.
Oh, teenage
Oh
girls.
my god.
Now I'm
'Cause
not
he raised
good at
a
all.
son.
with
He
teenage
raised a
girls.
son, so
Walks
let's
up
see.
and leaves.
Most of our questions come from girls, so we'll see.
Okay.
All right. The top one says, I want to get back my ex, but he has a girlfriend. He has shown me he doesn't love her because he cheated on her with me, but I don't know what to do. Help? Question mark. So this is one of those questions where there's just so much wrong that you don't
Yeah.
even know which angle to come in
Yeah,
from.
Yeah.
I know.
Lyric, go.
Okay, so I just always feel like it's a red flag sign when someone is cheating on their girlfriend or boyfriend with you. Like, okay, maybe they like you more than that person, but chances are they're going to do that to you if you get in a relationship with them. And so it's just never a good idea to start a relationship with someone who is cheating on someone, you
Ken?
know?
And like that doesn't even necessarily mean that they like you more than they like the person that they're with. Like, in some ways that could mean that they like you less because they're still with the person. If you meant that much to them, they would have left that person for you
Yeah.
in the first place.
Plus, you don't know if there was another person too. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You only know that you're the only other person.
Yeah, so, what I want to add to the conversation is just to clarify that sex doesn't equal love, and for girls a lot of times you think that by offering that up, that means that you're loved, or if it's received and acknowledged, the sexual attraction is acted upon, you may feel like that means he doesn't love his girlfriend and he loves me, but sex doesn't equal love at all, like ever. And that's confusing for young girls because that's such a precious gift to offer, and then for that not to mean that you're loved is a horrible betrayal. It can feel that way, but I would rather tell you now before you kind of get to be an adult, so that you understand that that's kind of what's going on. It's not love. It could just be lust, and the fact that he's willing to cheat on his girlfriend makes him a lustful, not reliable, trustworthy young man who probably needs to be single if he's interested in sleeping with lots of people. So, I mean, that's, I guess, my short answer, but it's always way more complicated. But I would want you to value yourself more than someone who's going to be breaking up a relationship using sex. Because I don't think that's a tool that we should be using. It's too complicated to use it that way. It's complicated enough if you're just having sex, because you have to protect against pregnancy and disease and all that stuff. But to use it as a tool to get someone to love you, one of the things that makes life so tricky. Sex is just one of those things that makes life really complicated. And it's like dynamite, It can be used to blow up something that you need to blow up, or it could blow off your finger. So I don't know if sex has ever blown off a finger, so forget that analogy. Wipe that, and let's come up with a better one. But yeah, be careful and love yourself. Love yourself enough to know that you get to have your own boyfriend who's not in a relationship with somebody else. Ken.
And if you come up with a better one, call 888-531-7171.
Give us a call. Maybe I didn't give the best advice there. But give us a call at 888-531-7171 and let us know what you think, because it would also help to know the ages of the people asking that question. I would hope they're at least 16. But and that's another thing too. Once sex comes into the picture, it's not like you can talk to your mom about it or your dad about it. So you're kind of on your own, but just be careful because it's not a way to win someone away from somebody else. Cupcake writes, Kenneth, would you read?
Yeah, I'm hurting because me and my sister were so close, but now she has a boyfriend and she never pays attention to me. It really hurts me because she was the only person I could talk to, and now she probably doesn't even love me anymore. What do I do?
Josh.
Yeah, so it's kind of, hopefully you watched last week's episode. I'll give a brief detail. I mean, something happened in the situation where your sister got a boyfriend, and I think that that's all that's in this situation, really. And yes, she's spending less time with you. It's not that cool. I mean, she thinks it's cool to have a boyfriend, which is great. But then you're responsible for making it mean something about yourself, and for what the fact that you don't think she loves you anymore, that's not even the case. She's just preoccupied with something else right now, and you'll still be there. You're her family, and she's your sister still, and you can still talk to her and let her know how you're feeling too, because maybe she doesn't even know.
I mean, there's a big difference in a relationship with a boy, with your boyfriend versus your sister. So, I mean, I think but I definitely think just saying to her, hey, I want to spend some more time with you. Like, when can we hang out? Let's go to the mall sometime or whatever you want to do. And just like telling her that you want to hang out, and, then I'm sure she'll make time for you.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. If you just had a conversation with her and we're like, okay, maybe, like, I understand you're really busy, but if we could go out, like, on Saturdays or go out on a day, like a sister day, that would be great. And another thing is that everybody goes through a stage like this in their life. That's just something that everybody goes where they'll find someone that they like, they'll spend a bunch of time with them, and it's going to feel like they don't care about the people that they used to be with. But that's not the case at all. It's just that that's just a part of growing up, relationships, and that first one is a big one. So just try to understand and know that it has nothing to do with her love for you. Victoria?
Yeah, just give it some time. It's going to pass soon. Like, they're going to, like, start to be, like, okay, more comfortable with each other, but they're going to, like, start to they're not going to spend that much time anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how to explain.
They'll get
it.
more used to each other, so they won't be spending as much time.
Yeah, so they'll not be like, oh, like, what's new about this person? What's new about this person? You know what I mean?
The newness is that time period where you just have to, like, connect with the other person, and, like, you can't stop staring at each other, and you're, like, totally focused on each other, and having a sister there is just distracting. But your sister, your question kind of takes on a poor me attitude, which isn't going to help your case at all. Because of course your sister still loves you. It's just that she's extremely preoccupied with this relationship. And if you're pouty and saying things like you don't even love it, like, or thinking things like that, then it's just going to push her further away, because she really needs to dig in and do this relationship thing right now. But if you would say to her, like, hey, can we have, like, a weekly sister date so that I have something to look forward to? Because I used to have you 24/7, and now I have you, 2/17. I don't know. What are some good fractions, Jake, for not all day or all week? 2, 1. Anyway.
1-7.
You have siblings, right, Dan?
Yes, I do.
So did you remember this happening when somebody started dating somebody?
I don't think with my siblings, but certainly groups of friends.
Yeah. It happens between friends.
With
sure.
friends.
You get into sort of your 20s or late teens, early 20s, and there's a really solid group of friends, and someone meets someone outside of the group, and then suddenly they just, like, vaporize, and they're not around anymore.
There's a cloud
and
of
then
smoke.
after a while, A, they break up and they're right back in the group, or B, that person gets brought into the group once that initial that infatuation is so powerful. You almost feel like the rest of the world melts away. When I met my wife, it was like that. I had a pretty big life and a big group of friends, as did she. I got kind of folded into her life more than anything, so I sort of abandoned all my friends. But I can totally relate.
She's pretty magnetic.
Yeah, she's pretty magnetic.
She is. She's a big people person, so, like, and she takes care of everybody. So there's that.
Yeah.
And that's valuable.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's going to happen. So it's not like, oh, this happened. It's going to happen to you too.
Yeah, and more and more and more in your life.
And you're going to need your sister to be patient when you kind of feel very distracted by a brand new relationship. It's these things, as Victoria said, they go through cycles. So just let this naturally go through its cycle. Tell your sister, hey, I miss you, but don't be all victim-y about it.
Yeah, be verbal about it.
yeah.
Tell her how you feel.
Yeah, tell her how you feel. Yeah.
The one thing you don't want to do is like keep poking at her. She's gonna be pushing away from you, and you don't want that to happen. Once like all this passes by, you want her to be there for you. You don't want her to like want to stay away from you because you've been invading her.
Right, because you
know?
burned bridges and. Lyric, would you read the question that says, if a guy?
Yes. If a guy with a girlfriend lies to his friends and says that he slept with another girl, do he and his friends probably think that the girl he pretended he slept with is prettier than his actual girlfriend? This question's a little complicated.
I know, but it's
But
awesome.
I get it. Like, I understand it. I had to
It's
think about
awesome
it for a minute.
because it's
but-
like it's almost like they would type it into Google that way.
Yeah, I know. I feel like this is a very hypothetical.
And then get an answer.
Hypothetical though.
Yeah,
It's a very-
It's
hypothetical.
hypothetical, but
Hypothetical.
you know it's because it actually
Yeah,
happened.
exactly.
All right, go. And oh,
I can say something.
yeah.
Okay, I guess.
Yeah.
So, I think, like, what they're asking is, will it mean that the girl is? They think the friends think the girl is prettier, like, you know what it's. Okay.
That's why he'd be lying
Yeah,
about
that's why
having
he'd be-
gotten with her.
And I think yes. I think that yes is the answer. I sort of think
would
that
say,
could be what it is.
But don't you first want to say, what a douche?
yes. Okay. Clearly,
He has a girlfriend. Why would he be lying about sleeping?
And
Damn.
also, how intelligent are his friends? I
Right.
mean, this
They
is
all
all
sound pretty-
predicated on, yeah, totally.
They all
right?
sound
Not
like
too
tools.
bright.
Yeah,
They
it
sound
doesn't
like
very
tools.
right, yeah.
basic guys.
Because it's not like Pokemon where you got to catch them all. Like, we're like saying,
Some
like,
people
oh,
feel that
like
way.
look at all the girls that I'm training.
I mean, I
this
think
one's
that guys
prettier.
like so going back to the question, guys that would pretend to like hook up with other girls back in the Stone Ages when I was
Yeah.
growing up,
Yeah.
we're trying to get obviously we're insecure and we're trying to get attention. And I don't know that if their friends sort of operate on that same level, maybe they would. But if their friends are like intelligent, I would think they could see through that and think like, what's your deal? Like, why would you even imply that you did that?
yeah.
So I'm going to go to I don't think anyone's prettier than anyone in this scenario. Because I don't really think that guys who say stuff like this, it's about that. It's really a numbers game for them.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Oh,
anyway.
Josh,
I mean,
yeah, sorry.
I mean, I don't think it's like if I was another guy and someone was saying that to me, I wouldn't like automatically go to, oh, that must be prettier than the person you're with.
Right.
It would just be more of like, oh, well, why are you with the other person, or what are you not getting from that relationship, or is it the numbers thing? I don't think the prettier thing would even come up on 1 through 5 at all. So, Kenneth.
What I was just gonna say is that it has nothing to do with that. Like, that's what everybody's saying, and I'm just gonna like repeat it and just like agree with all of you when it's the fact that it has nothing to do with being prettier. I like work with someone like this who thinks like just talking about it is like supposed to be like, oh yeah, but it's more of just like you're kind of making a fool out of yourself, and so don't think it's about that. It has nothing to do with prettier, and if you think it does, no, it doesn't mean that the girl's prettier because. Yeah, it really doesn't mean that. So,
But-
Victoria?
It kind of seems to me like he's either embarrassed about his girlfriend or his guy friends had told him that the girlfriend's not exactly the most attractive girl in the world, or they act like that, or he feels that way, you know what I mean? And he made this lie up because of that. You really shouldn't lie about something like that. It's
Maybe, but I don't know. I still say when it comes to sex that guys are just it's not necessarily about someone being better than the person that they've decided to date. Like they're dating the person they're dating because that person has a lot of really good qualities. And so to be just pointing at other girls and lying about that you got with them, I don't know if that has to do with appearances or just bragging that you because a certain girl is in your orbit that you're going to claim you slept with her. Like but I'm not a guy, so I Ken.
Oh, wait, no, lyric, sorry.
It's thank you. I mean, I think it is a possibility that he may be like, yeah, I got with this girl, and she's even prettier than the girl. Like, I feel like sometimes a guy could, I don't know, or even like a girl could be like, oh yeah, you cheated on them because they're better looking, and like, oh yeah, you really got with that more attractive person. I just feel like it could be a possibility. I don't know if it necessarily 100% means it is, but I think it could be. Go ahead.
Yeah, just overall, just this guy's an asshole. Just
Yeah,
don't talk to
they're
him.
all
He just doesn't seem
really
good
Move on.
anyway. Yeah.
Move on.
This group is not.
All right, Josh, would you read the question from Anonymous?
Yeah. It seems like almost every single teenager now is depressed, suicidal, and obsessed with having a boyfriend, girlfriend, and if they don't, their lives are over. I don't know anyone who isn't at least a little like that. Do you know why that is? I don't really understand.
Ken.
Everyone's feeling sorry for themselves, and it's really sad. We live in a society where everybody's like, it's encouraged to be like, oh, what are you feeling? Are you okay? It's just, back then it wasn't like that. I don't know. I mean, it could be, it couldn't be, but I'm just saying back then it was kind of more just like, be a man up, like, don't know how to swim, get thrown in a pool.
Mhm.
It was, and we just live in a society where it's a lot is based on emotions, and having a boyfriend or a girlfriend, it's kind of sad. But just don't be that person, and people will respect you.
Yeah, I think it's a balance, and you're right about that. When I was growing up, I mean, no one talked about their feelings at all, and it was very much about, like, you know, the best guy on the baseball team or the thing. It was very, very. But I think it's a balance of the two. You know, when we raised my son, I think my initial sort of inclination was to replicate sort of the parenting model that I grew up with, and my wife fortunately grew up with a very different parenting model, so a much healthier parenting model, you know, and one that encouraged, like, Dylan to talk about what he's up to and this and that, but not to sort of like dwell on. Yeah, it's hard to say, you know. There's a healthy way to talk about emotions. I would say if Anonymous's life is surrounded by what she's describing or he's describing, that's really sad. Get out and find some new friends. I mean, there are a lot of incredible people out there, you know.
Lyric.
I'm not such a fan of suicidal and depressed and not having a boyfriend and girlfriend being all lumped together as one, because I think that there are a lot of people. Yes, I mean, we get questions from people who are suicidal and depressed, but I don't think that it's always necessarily because they don't have a boyfriend or girlfriend. I think a lot of people are like, I'm so sad and I just want to, you know, like, die because I don't have, like, anyone that loves me. But I don't think it's all one at all. I mean, like, yeah, it just seems a little weird to, like, lump that as one category. You know what I mean?
It's hard to be a teenager at any time. When I was growing up, when Dan was growing up, when you guys are growing up. But is it harder now because of, say, FOMO and looking online to see that having the appearance that other people are having girlfriends and having fun and you're not? Josh?
Yeah, well, this kind of goes a little bit with what I was going to say. Going off of everybody else, like, talking about emotions and thoughts and different things, I think that a lot of, like, depression or suicidal thoughts, obsessive behavior ends up happening if you're relating to what's happening and the thoughts in your head rather than what's actually in front of you. And I think that in those situations, like, you start to become, like, self-pity and certain things.
Nice.
Certain things and certain thoughts will become more prevalent if you continue to feed them. And I think, like, one of the ways I've said on the show before to help that is really, like, for instance, knowing that your thoughts aren't always reality or true, which, so for me, like, or if even feelings, like, I'm at a party and I should be happy, like, everyone's happy and everything, but out of nowhere I'm sad. Like, it just doesn't make sense. It's not 100% like part of the situation. So I know, like, okay, well, I have a choice now. Like, am I going to be sad because, like, some neurochemical whatever's going on back here, or am I just going to try to go out and be the person that I know I am to be? So Kenneth?
Yeah, and understand, like, if you get sad sometimes, don't be like, oh, that means I'm depressed now. Learn to be like, because everybody's like, oh, so I've been sad for the past couple of days, I guess I'm depressed, and then they, like, link that to, like, other things. And I'm not saying, like, everybody's like this. I'm not saying that there aren't people who are genuinely depressed and suicidal out there.
But a lot of people jump to that.
But I'm saying that it's a lot of 0 to 100 really quick.
Yeah, and the next thing you know, the kid's online taking some quiz that you know, that kind of
depressed?
confirms
Are you depressed
that you're
quiz.
depressed. Yeah, Victoria.
And, like, I don't know if this is, like, all the time, but I've met some people who were popular because they complain a lot or they have certain things, you know what I mean?
Attention.
And it could just be for attention, and maybe you just want to stay away from that group. I mean, I know a lot of people who are not like that, and those are the people that you probably want.
Yeah, like Dan was saying, like maybe you're just in kind of a group of friends that are sort of emphasizing the negative, whereas people like Josh try to emphasize the positive.
Yeah, and I think also embracing sadness as well. Like sadness is in our society. Sadness is completely shunned and discouraged. It's like, be happy, be happy. Everything's sort of around like, be happy. Why are you sad? Like, be sad if you're going to be sad, but also acknowledge the fact that there's a lot. Once again, the whole gamut of human and emotion. But not to dismiss the idea that there are people that chemically really, really struggle. And that's something that we need to, and I think that's something that needs to be looked at seriously too. And I mean, obviously that falls to the parents more than the kids. For
right.
Sure.
And like Lyric was saying, like there's a big difference between being sad because you don't have a girlfriend and actually feeling suicidal, which you need to be in therapy so that you're talking to a professional about that, because there's despair and then there's depths of despair, and we want to protect you from that kind of mood that's just persistent where you don't want to get out of bed if that's the case. But like for you to feel like all your friends are that way, it sounds like you're not. That's why you're lumping everything together, because there's definitely a delineation between feeling sad one day and feeling suicidal. And Lyric.
And they're also asking why this is that everyone seems to be depressed about not having a boyfriend or girlfriend. And I think it's because, everyone's like thinking about that now, like puberty and stuff. Everyone's like, oh, I want a boyfriend. I want to like have someone with me and stuff. I mean, most of the people that I know are busy, and so they don't really think about that as much. So I think there are people out there that like we're saying, it's maybe just your group of friends, but I think most teens and kids are like, oh, I really wish I had a significant other, because it's like you want to kind of be like have someone who you have a connection with and like be cared for kind of thing. You know what I mean? So I mean, it's common, like it's normal.
I mean, we yearn for that connection.
Yeah.
That's what drives us to be in relationships one day. Maybe it's not supposed to happen when you're 14 or 16, but you're going to yearn for it. And that's why people fall in love with celebrities or have celebrity crushes and stuff, because it's like that's a place to channel and like exercise your heart muscles so that one day you're when you're ready and the right person comes along, you're ready.
That goes right into
it goes right into this question.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You said celebrity
Who wants to read it?
Yeah.
I read the other question.
All
Go
right,
ahead.
Ken.
Okay. I've thought I was that one.
Yeah, exactly.
I've thought I was a lesbian for quite some time now. I've come out to everyone. I've been accepted, and it's great. But now I'm realizing some things. I've only ever had celebrity crushes, not crushes on people. I know in real life. Now there's a guy who I feel the same way about as I do with my female crushes, but I don't think it's necessarily physical attraction. I think it may just be aesthetic, romantic, but I'm not sure. I think I may have rushed into labeling myself and coming out, as I'm still growing, changing, and exploring. Any advice on coming out?
This is the first question like
I
this
love
we've
this
ever
question.
gotten.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that sounds
it's awesome.
amazing. This is an
It's a
amazing
great question. I
Yeah.
think, my only advice is really just uncome out. Like, I've always been someone who said that labels are great to have if they help you feel more welcome in a situation. However, you are free to be whatever you want to be at any time, and know that it's like fluid throughout things. So if you want to say you're a lesbian, you're a lesbian maybe today. Tomorrow you're straight. Who knows? I think that you're good to go. Lyric?
I think and then I'll pass to you, but I think you don't have to necessarily go to everyone at school, make a huge announcement. By the way, guys, I might be kind of bi, so let's you can just say, if it comes up in a conversation, you can just be like, I think I might just be if someone's like, oh yeah, you're a lesbian, can you give me advice on this? Be like, maybe I'm bi. You don't have to necessarily announce it, just if it comes up, and maybe tell your closest friends. But I think it's just good that you're aware and not needing to label yourself and feeling like it's okay, whatever I want to be, I can be that. And I just don't think you need to make it a huge big thing. Ken?
Yeah, and I understand what you're saying, but I also kind of understand what she's saying, because there is this sometimes where if you know that a girl's lesbian and you can find them attractive, you can think they're amazing, but then you're like, oh no, I can't, because they're and it's kind of you get into this mindset where oh, I can't talk to them, or it not talk to them, but it's just kind of you see what I mean. And by the way, I just want to give kudos to you. That's really cool that you I don't know, it's just amazing that you actually put a lot of thought to this, and I just think it's
This
That
is
was
a really great
that was a
question.
really good
Yeah.
question,
Before we go on, could you guys please help me understand what's the term aesthetic/romantic? So is that a
I
term?
didn't get this.
Is that a term that the person is finding online?
No,
So-
no. I mean, an aesthetic attraction, right? I like the way the person looks.
Right.
And I'm romanticizing the idea that I'm having a relationship with that person.
Yeah.
Right. So it's
It's just projection, right? All of it. I mean, they don't know the person, right? And I think also the idea that coming out is like a huge thing because and society's changing obviously, but society historically would have an opinion about that, about the idea that I'm a lesbian, right? And it wouldn't if she said, "Oh, actually, I'm heterosexual." That's like an uncoming out is almost like an anticlimactic thing, like probably in her life. So I agree with you. Like the label thing has always really bothered me. I know people
me
that
too.
have had male and female relationships. So, I kudos for the question. It's a great question,
Yeah.
but also like the sort of the problem, or not problem necessarily, but the challenge of sort of like, it's like a professional athlete retires and then 3 years later he's like, oh yeah, or a band. Yeah, this is our last concert, man. And then pretty soon it's like, this will be our final tour. And, it's like,
Yeah.
dude, I thought you guys already like broke up, So, right.
Yeah.
So anyway.
I don't know if I kind of said this, but I think it's really also great that you just like are. Wait, no, I already said this. I was going to say something else, but I forgot. Okay, go on.
So, I think for girls, when you use the term aesthetic, romantic, I know they're going on Tumblr and they're finding all these different categories of attraction, like sexual, aesthetic, romantic, etc., etc. When I was like 14, I didn't want to think about anything sexual. All of my crushes were simply aesthetic, romantic, because
Right.
the idea of sex was like terrifying for a girl.
But that's the whole idea of like Tiger Beat and all that early
Yeah.
exposure is to exercise your heart muscles,
Right,
like you
right.
said, right?
Right.
It's like to get you and like, yeah.
So I think that unless or until you're ready to really kiss someone and all that's involved in the layer beyond aesthetic and romantic, we don't really have to worry about any kind of labels at all. And if you've told people that you believe you're gay, and like I like the idea of what Lyric said, is just simply said, "Oh, I think I'm bi," because that's people are gonna do the head bob, like,
Yeah.
okay.
I'm just into people.
It's gonna be like a non-issue, really, honestly. Kenneth?
And this is not a bad thing, but this is just the interpretation that I got from the question, that you're really quick to come up with things. It's like, oh, I find this attractive, I'm this. Oh wait, no, now I find a guy attractive, now I'm straight. Like, just learn to, you don't owe anyone anything. You don't have to say I'm this. You can just be like, this is the way I feel. I'm not, maybe, in the future, if I feel like, this has come up a lot, now I'm going to go uncome out or stay come out, but just learn to take some time, and you don't have to make a decision right away.
Right.
Yeah, and adding on what Kenneth said, like really the words around it don't really matter. They think like there's one level of power in life. It's words can be spoken, but then just being whatever it is too. So just be you and be a person in life and go throughout life. Be in life.
Yeah, just like learning that you
I don't
don't
know.
you don't have to jump to labels. Like, a lot of people are really quick to be like, and we've talked about this on the show before, but like, I am this, therefore I am 100% like this label. And sometimes it's best to just be like, I am who I am. Like, I don't need a label for who I'm attracted to. And just the fact that you say that you've only liked celebrities, like that shows that you don't have so much, you aren't like so sure who you are yet. And so that's, just be who you are, and you don't have to label yourself.
Right.
on
You
it.
don't have to register it with the city. You get to change your mind.
You get change your mind.
Yeah. So this question says, there's this guy I met in September. In December, he told me he likes me. I told him I don't want a boyfriend and that I was just getting out of a bad relationship. In April, I asked him to prom as a friend. In June, we go to prom, and at the end of the night, he tells me he loves me, and I tell him that I love him too. Now it's July, and I think I like him. Is it too late to do anything? Does he still like me? When he said he loved me, did he mean it, or did he mean just as friends? Hands are going up. Josh.
Like, stop playing games, really. Like, honestly, like, it. First of all, why would you ask him out to prom knowing that he likes you and
Yeah.
you didn't even care like at all? So like, you have no right to like say like that you have feelings now, and you can explain those to him, but don't be upset when he says no. Like, Lyric.
Just about the I love you part, like, it really depends on how it was said. If it was like, oh my God, I love you so much, like that's, me and my guy friends say that all the time. But if it was like, look, I really love you. Like, okay, then that was a more serious I love you. So I think, about if you're wondering about that, but this just sounds like just not it's too much games and like saying that you love him now after saying that you didn't like him and then, going to prom. It's just like, maybe let's stop this.
I mean, sometimes that's just how it works with people. Sometimes you don't like them, and then after you spend a bunch of time with them, you're like, okay, like, yeah, I like you now. Like, sometimes it's not like a right off the bat thing where like I meet you and it's like, oh, I love you so much,
That's true.
and we should date. It takes time, and the fact that it took time doesn't necessarily make it bad. It kind of makes it kind of better in a way, because it means like you guys have built a relationship together, and this is the outcome. And so, it's kind of the same position that he was back in December, you said, where it's like he said he liked you, he asked you, you said no, and you guys stayed friends. It's kind of just going to be the same way like that. But
Yeah.
there's a possibility it can go somewhere else. Victoria?
I would I wouldn't use the word love too like
Liberally.
Yeah.
because like you don't really know yet. You know what I mean? It's just been one night, so I wouldn't label it. That's like labeling,
Mhm.
Do you have thoughts on this, Dan?
Yeah, I'm developing feelings for you would be a good way to start. That cuts through the casual like, oh my God, I love you so much. You're such a good
That's really
Totally.
good. Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
I'm developing feelings for you. I mean, I think the one thing I wish if I could go back in time and relive my teen years, it would include really frank, vulnerable conversation with. I think about it all the time. Like if I think about the girls I dated, even after high school, just like withholding vulnerability constantly, and then the idea of like, oh, I love you. Does he love me? This and that. That sounds like a three-way phone conversation with giggling involved. Like, ask the guy or tell the guy you have feelings for him or not, or this or that. And you're absolutely right about the idea that the more you're around someone, you start to see him more as a human being, or you see qualities that you never would see from an aesthetic romantic standpoint. Obviously, wow, that guy's really attractive. Wow, that girl's really attractive. Okay, that's a starting point maybe. But that doesn't inform like any kind of relationship. So yeah, I think that's a really good
kidding
point
me?
you made. Yeah.
Stop pointing.
All right. I have something to say. All right. So to me, it feels like this guy's been in love with you for a long time. He's been patient. He's been willing to be your friend. And you asked him to prom because it felt like a comfortable thing to do. But it actually was giving him a mixed message if you didn't like him at that time. But kids do all kinds of things for all kinds of reasons. And if you're now developing feelings for him, he's going to be thrilled. He hasn't stopped loving you. That's my take on it. And I also think that as kids grow up together, boys and girls change, and they can suddenly tomorrow become attractive to you because now he doesn't look like a boy, he looks like a man. So those things are going on as well. And so I think there's a lot of wiggle room within this, and that's why I don't believe in the friend zone. Even as fully grown adults, I don't believe in the friend zone. I think it's in a state of flux at all times. I mean, there's a time where you have to cut bait if the person just is not falling in love with you and you can't get over them and keep them as a friend. But in this case, it sounds like just the normal, as Kenneth was saying, the normal span of things. And if you now want to say no, I really love you romantically, and like Dan said, have an honest conversation like, I'm starting to really develop romantic feelings. I don't mean to lead you along because I love you too much to do that to you, but I just want you to know what my truth is in this current moment, Victoria.
We could also because after she said that she loves him too, she said, I think I like him.
She means
I
like.
got that too. Yeah.
She means like.
Like
Yeah.
with air quotes, like
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
implying.
I think that's what she means.
Yeah, maybe we should use that word instead. You know what I
No,
mean?
because that could mean these are all just words now because they said I love you at the prom. Did that mean anything? So what does like mean and what does love mean? I mean, I think like Dan was saying, you have to define it. Like, I'm starting to develop feelings for you. That's a more clear statement than I like you or I love you, which we all send hearts and emojis and all kinds of stuff to each other. And you're only dating one person or married to one person at a time. So if it's starting to develop into that kind of like, you need to spell that out.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear love used in way liberally as well. You know, the idea like love is this sacred thing, right? So I think we have to like filter it. I almost feel like the air quotes love or this whatever love that is, but like I like you historically was like I really like you. Like that implies like beyond like I like you. It's more like I like you, and let's see where that goes. And then down the road, you know, I'm developing romantic feelings for you. I really love you. I'm in love with you. Those are feelings that are much more evolved and much more sort of like powerful feelings, you know. So the whole like I met him once and this, and we went to the prom, and like you're not gonna fall in love with someone through like this kind of experience. You know, you're gonna like someone's gonna maybe pique your interest, and you're going to move in that direction. But you know, we're talking about powerful emotions. You know, I think like the words are maybe used a little too liberally.
I think I smashed. That was a good answer, Dan. I think I smashed two questions together. So I'm gonna read.
You did.
Yeah.
That's what I was that's what I was saying.
You know what I was doing? I was rearranging them on the page to put them in a good in order for the show, and to make sure that I got to the ones that I really liked.
No, that's what I was just asking.
Yeah. So the one says from Sweet Me Laney says, "Do you believe that psychologists can solve your problems?" And that's a really short question, but I think you could talk about the
Let
answer
it-
for days.
Let it continue. There's a lot more to
No,
the
this
question.
is it's two separate questions.
Yeah,
She just smashed
Oh.
them together.
I smashed them together.
My
My bad.
bad.
Late.
Lyric.
Okay, I don't believe that anyone can solve your problems. I think that the only person who can make your problems get better is you, but with the help of someone you can get tools and gain stuff to help yourself. I don't think that you can ever really like solve your problems, and I don't think especially anyone can solve them for you. I think that ultimately you have to be the one who solves them for yourself.
I like your use of the word tools. I think
Yeah.
that's a really
I mean,
good-
for me, like I've had to, get tools to help my anxiety, and no one has solved it for me. I've had to, work on it for myself.
Victoria.
So yeah.
I was basically gonna say what she said, but like no one can solve your problems. They could just help you with them, and like you're the only person who can solve your problems. You're the only one who can.
But
like,
let's
really
not
make
get
that change.
let's not get stuck in semantics. If they're asking, should I go see a psychologist?
Well,
Yes.
Yes.
yeah, they can help you if you let them help
Right.
you. They can help.
It's funny too, because if we cut our finger, or if we break a bone, we don't hesitate to go to a doctor, right? Because there's a physical thing happening. And I think when it comes to matters of our mental health, there's a disconnect from it. And I think if you find someone who knows what they're doing, who's really good at what they do, in the same way that you'd go to a doctor for a broken bone, if there's a therapist that you find that can really offer some insight, their own experience, et cetera, absolutely, 100%. Absolutely.
Especially like in when you're talking about your childhood when you were growing up, it was like especially for boys, it was like, hey, buck up. And so like lots of stuff did not get addressed.
Oh yeah.
And so then by the time you're 50, there's layers of stuff.
No question. Yeah, no question. All kinds of crap I've had to like undo and figure out.
Yeah, so definitely at your age, you're going to have an easier go at life if you accept that this is one of the parts of me that needs to be addressed. Not just, my body for your medical checkup every year, but also, from time to time when you're feeling a need, you go to an expert and you talk about this stuff, because there's not just that medication might be helpful. It's also just that a safe place to talk about things that you're maybe unsure of how you're even supposed to feel. They can really peel away all the layers and get right to it. Ken?
I don't know. For me, I kind of have a different opinion on this than a lot of do. If it's an issue that you really just feel like I don't know what to do, I need to go to a psychologist. But when it comes to problems, people are in my opinion, I could be completely wrong, and it's purely my opinion, are too quick to go to psychologists and be like, I have a problem, solve it for me. And it's created a lot of things where now people don't know what to do when they're in situations, and they get a lot of anxiety, and that just makes them hard to solve things quickly.
But what if you're getting tools
Mm-hmm.
so that the next time a situation arises, you know how you can apply the tools that you've learned, so that you don't have to go to a psychologist as often anymore. You see patterns in life, that there's just patterns as we relate to each other as we go along through life, that we're like, I see this type of person coming. I don't want to engage with this type of person. I'm not going to be her best friend because the last time I befriended a person like this, it led to all this drama. It helps you just see patterns and recognize patterns so that you can protect yourself and have a healthier outlook.
Yeah, I that's definitely true. It's just I'm just saying that there are issues that sometimes there needs to be like, all right, this really sucks and I want to find help right now, but I'm gonna buckle down and try to be like able to solve this on my own, and that will help me in the future to be a stronger person.
Right, but the idea isn't
Yeah.
that you have a problem and suddenly the idea is that this is a practice, that you have someone that you work with, that you talk to, that you start to understand yourself way better. So when problems do come up, you know how to do that. This isn't a sort of like fire alarm that you pull when something happens. Certainly it can be used that way, like holy shit, holy crap. I have something going on right now. That I need help with. How do I do this? Now, I will say that, parents hopefully in this day and age can offer some help with that as well. But a lot of times a third party that's in a safer place could be like a really great help. But yeah, I mean, to rely on it maybe to like solve all your problems, no. But the idea is if you do it as a practice, you get tools to solve problems, to look at things and say like, here are my options. This is probably the healthiest option for me. This will be low impact on that person or whatever the problem is. And so we actually start to learn how to, I mean, I'm envious that in today's day and age, it's much more acceptable to have like therapy. We didn't have any of that stuff. I remember I lived in New York and I went to a therapist the first time and my mom was like freaking out, like, oh my God, what did I do wrong? You went to therapy? Because from that time, it was not accepted,
Yeah, we have definitely changed our outlook. What we do, one more thought.
I mean, I think like also some people have stuff that they're dealing with, but they don't want to go to a therapist because they think, oh, I can solve this on my own. I'm fine. And then it kind of like I know people that have chosen not to go to a therapist and they need help and tools to deal with it, but they feel like they don't want to rely on someone. So I think just like knowing that there are people there that can help you when you need something and to help you work on whatever you're struggling with, but not to use it as a Band-Aid solution that's like, oh, I go to the therapist once and it's going to solve all of my problems.
Right. And the other thing about a therapist that's fantastic is it is really, as Dan said, a third party. This person is not interwoven into the fabric of your life at all. And so you can just tell them something and they're not going to go, Betty, guess what? Lyric just told me that she has a crush on, Tommy. Like they're not your mom, so that your mom, you can't just tell your mom something because she's going to think like Dan's mom did, like, what did I do wrong that my child is sad? There's all these layers and layers and layers of stuff when you confess something to even a good friend that it might kind of leak out into the rest of your life. Whereas the shrink, they're not telling anybody. And so even if they didn't go to school to become a shrink, they're still good because it's just like, hey, I'm going to say this stuff to you, and maybe it'll just be helpful for me to hear myself say it out loud. Here's your money. And then you go on and have a happier life. Like, so there's a lot of value to it. And I just want everyone to feel better. So I'm all about that.
Right.
You can also go into the Journals app and type away your problems, and there'll be someone there to help you.
Yeah.
So, Dan, the name of your book, because I think that kids should read your book. I think there's a lot in there for kids who are aspiring to go after something that's kind of hard to do, like one of those careers that's not that easy to get into. So the name of your book?
So the one you're talking about is Road to Seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's obviously on Amazon. That's my fifth book. I have another book coming out in next month, actually.
Really? Tell us about that.
That's it's my sixth book, I think. Yeah, it's called The Gray Ghost, and it's a series of photographs, street photographs in New York, taken over a 30-year period from 1987 till this past year.
That's
So 29-year
cool.
period.
Ooh, I love
Yeah.
street
I'm gonna get
photography.
That's a good one.
Street photography is the best.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's all black and white. It's really different from some of the other stuff I put out. And but the Road to Seeing is kind of an autobiographical, anecdotal. It's 700 pages. It's pretty.
Wow.
It's like Grapes of Wrath, but it's.
I read it on my Kindle.
You read it on Kindle and all the 305 photographs in there. There's a whole history of photography. I would say read the book just to read the history of photography part, because there's a whole history of photography that I think most people would be really fascinated by.
And that was, I love that because I love the history of anything, and especially the history of things that I'm keenly interested in. So
Right.
I love that. And then my sister has the book, and then you open the book, and then you get to see all the pictures large.
Yeah,
'Cause
does
it's
the Kindle have the pictures at all?
Yes, it does.
Oh,
but it's
okay.
not the same as looking
At
through
the
the
book.
book. Yeah,
Sure,
it's not the same
absolutely.
experience. So
Absolutely.
thank you so much, Dan Winters, for being with us. And
thank
thank you,
you.
Thank you
panel.
so much.
And we will see you next week. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Great show. So we
You
went a
guys
little
are
long just 'cause
awesome.
it was.
Wait, can
Wow,
we?
I feel like I
can we
learned
do this
so much.
question?